Austin Tech Connect is the official podcast of the Austin Technology Council. Founded in 1992, ATC exists to help unite the local technology ecosystem and to encourage the spread of community, collaboration, and conversations in Central Texas. This podcast is sponsored by SailPoint. They are a leading provider of identity security for the modern enterprise, empowering organizations worldwide to put identity security at the core of their business. With a foundation of artificial intelligence and machine learning, SailPoint Identity Security delivers the right access to the right identities and resources at the right time. Now, here is this week's episode.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Austin Tech Connect. This is the official podcast of the Austin Technology Council. My name is Thom Singer, and every week we bring to this show really interesting people so that we can talk about the tech scene in Austin, success for business, and where our whole community is going. And today I am excited to invite a newcomer to our Austin scene, Eric Sims. Eric, welcome to Austin Tech Connect.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Tom. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I'm glad to have you. For those of you who don't know Eric, Eric is the CEO of LEC, which stands for Leading Edge Connect. And what Eric does is he builds customer experience models and support models for brands all over the world. And he does this in that contact support business. And we're going to learn a little bit about his company and why they moved to Austin here in just a few minutes. But he's actually, when I said he was a newcomer, I'm not kidding around. He got to Austin December 1st, 2023. So just a little more than 2 months ago, didn't even get into his house until a month ago. And he came here because he and his family, they wanted a fresh start. They wanted a fresh place. They wanted a community that offered things for them professionally, personally, and with a great location. And Austin offers all of that. And we're going to find out how he chose Austin and what else he looked at. So Eric, let's find out a little bit about you. Let's go in the Wayback Machine. Where did you start your career and how did you get this entrepreneurial tech bug?
Yeah, so I started my career. So I'm originally from Fort Worth, and so I started obviously my career there when I dropped out of school. I wasn't a good student, and so the entrepreneurial experiences then had nothing to do with technology and nothing really to do with anything. They were very customer centric and very service centric businesses. And then when I moved to Tampa in 2006, I found myself kind of starting over. It's like I was 33 at the time. I was starting my life completely over. It was, without going into too much detail because I don't want to bore people, but personally a complete disaster, right? And so Peter Pan finally grew up at that point in time. And so I decided to kind of start my life over and found a contact center company in an outsourced contact center company in Tampa, went to work for those guys. And so I was just telling this story the other night to one of the guys at 33, which was still, 17 years ago. I didn't have my knowledge of technology was almost zero or less than zero, right? Like I remember like somebody telling me to go fax something and it was like, I was back there scratching my head, right? Like I couldn't even figure out how to do that. So me being kind of built like I was, it was embarrassing, and so I started digging in and learning more and more about technology and getting more and more passionate about it. And then it's such a huge part of what we do that I was forced over the years to really dig in and learn quite a bit more around the different softwares and tools and experiences that are out there that impact the customer journey or customer experience that these companies that we were working with were offering. So that's the early days of how I dug in and figured it out. And I enjoyed the variety of technology from our industry because we're constantly plugging into different organizations who may be using completely different tech stacks. And so although I may not learn every one, there's a bit of knowledge and understanding, right, that goes into like at least what they're doing and why they're using it. And so I just found all that really, really interesting. And then, with our business, how do we leverage that and make things better for people?
So it's interesting because when I interview either on this show or when I just sit around and talk with entrepreneurs who are successful and growing businesses here in Austin and beyond, you kind of get two stories. You get the person who has the Harvard MBA, who, went to Wharton for their undergrad and, walked right into doing either, consulting or venture capital and then started a company. Or you talk to the person who says at 33, I had been a college dropout. I wasn't a good student. My life was a personal disaster. And Peter Pan had to grow up and roll up my sleeves. And then they go forward. Do you think there's an advantage to having had some hard knocks along the way rather than coming out with a perfect pedigree?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak what the other side looks like, right? Because I've never been there, but I can say I do find myself when I work with other people on our team and in other teams that have come from that side, um, being put in uncomfortable situations where there's a lot of unknown factors, or there's high stress, doesn't impact me the same way it does other people. So I think there is an advantage there of being being one of those people who has to figure it out yourself or be mentored in some way, like, but go learn on your own, right? So I think that does have a distinct advantage in some capacities. It's a disadvantage maybe in other ones where, there's just fundamental schooling that's really great to have that may be missing. And you have to either go out and find that or learn it or hire somebody, that's really good at that kind of stuff. But yeah.
So I had a conversation just the other day with somebody who said that when they're hiring people for their team, they want a mix of both. They want some of the people who came out of Stanford, and they want some people who came up through the school of hard knocks for the exact reasons that you said, that you bring in that diversity of thought, that diversity of experience into that. So do you find that when you're hiring people, do you give people the benefit of the doubt if their pedigree doesn't stack up to what you're looking for?
Yeah, I mean, over the years, I think that's changed. And, where we are today, I think we're very much more strategic about that. And what I mean is we've learned to look at like what we call like an ideal persona, much like you would build for like marketing, and say, okay, this position's ideally made up of this type of person. What does that look like? And there are positions that are more prone to having someone with maybe what we'll call street smarts, right, than the book smarts. And then there's other positions where you can't get away with that. And being that, so like when we built LEC, we went fully remote from day one. We've never had a building. So we were early cycle for that for our industry. There were still a lot of people, there was a lot of technology in place for people, but from our industry, we were extremely early. And that's one of the things we had to figure out over the first couple of years was, hey, the type of person that traditionally was an A player in a brick and mortar center or in an office setting was not necessarily the same person in this setting. And so we've had to evolve that over the years and get very strategic with, okay, this person, we can have somebody that's like, a little more fly by the seat of their pants or a little more creative or a little more of a gunslinger, as we'll call them, or maverick. And then these people over here, like we need people that are far more schooled and analytical and operational minded, to run these pieces of the business, or it causes major problems.
So it's interesting. You started the company. I think you had told me it was 6 years ago that you started this company.
Yeah.
And so I want to talk a little bit about the decision to start it as fully remote. Obviously, after 4 years ago with the pandemic and everybody kind of going and trying that out, it's worked for some companies. It hasn't worked for others. But you were ahead of the game on that. Hey, we're going to be fully remote. What caused you to want to do that and not have any sort of actual physical location?
Yeah. So I'd come out of a remote environment being an employee. And had run pretty much every aspect of the business, and so had my partner. I have one partner in the business, John Giuliano. And so we were like the crux of it was we were having one of those industry, I'll call it bitch sessions, where you're calling your buddy and complaining about everything in the business and how stupid it is and how worthless this is and how seeing these reoccurring issues dealt with the same way was just infuriating. And I have and I do a little bit of executive coaching on the side, mentoring and things like that. So that hat kind of went on in the moment and was like, hey, the rule is you got to play the game fair. And if you're going to point out all the stuff you don't like, you do have to point out all the stuff you do like. And you've been doing this for a decade. So there's obviously stuff you do enjoy. So play the game fair, right? So we literally got out a whiteboard, and a virtual whiteboard, and said, okay, here's all the stuff we don't like. Here's all the stuff we do like. And how do we build a business with primarily, if not all, the stuff we love? And if there's anything that we have to do on the stuff we don't like side, we promise not to, at least not to do it the same way, right? And so that's how we formulated LEC. And the big piece for us was, when you look at because we're an outsourced solution, we're dealing with a company and their brand, and then representing that brand, right? And building that journey, and also servicing that journey, whatever industry it may be. And because of the financial constraints that you put in place when you have a location, it really posed challenges to the fundamental pieces of the business that we provide, which is talent, techniques, and technology. And for years, it was forced because you had to have on-prem, right? And then, but we were already in 2017, like we're past that point now, right? Like from a technology standpoint, we had some pretty good solutions even then for doing remote work. So that wasn't a reason to do it. And then we said, from a talent standpoint, I'm not the smart, again, I'm not book smart, but I do know that if I draw a circle that's about a 3-mile radius around a location in anywhere in the United States, and ask the question, are there more good people in this 3-mile radius of this building in this crappy part of town, or are there more good people in the continental United States? The answer is pretty obvious, right? So that opened up the talent pool for us to be able to go out and really find people strategically that were suited for what we need them to do, which is pretty wide variety at times, right? Because our servicing clients could be anything from an entertainment company to a software company to a financial institution. Like, they're all over the map, right? So that solved that problem. And then being able to implement best practices, it opened the door for that. Most importantly, it allowed for financial alignment between the two organizations, so that what was important to our customer was important to us. And it helped some cohesiveness there that was very disjointed in our industry, when you look at the existing model with most of the outsourced partners that are in the United States or overseas.
So I love this idea that you took the whiteboard and listed everything in the industry you liked and everything you didn't like in 2 different columns. I don't know that that's something that everybody does when they start a business, but I made a note of that to think about that, just even in running the Austin Technology Council. What are the parts of it as we're trying to reinvent this organization? What are the parts that are good? What are the parts that I don't like? I actually made a note to go back and do that. So I'll be whiteboarding a little bit today about the
Cool.
nonprofit industry probably, and try to put more of the things we like involved with ATC.
I have growing up, my mom always used to say, like, everything can't be fun. And that used to really bother me, because I still to this day think there's still a way to make almost everything fun. And that was another piece of that for me. Like, I enjoyed the business, but it wasn't fun. And it wasn't fun for some of those reasons. And if I built it this way, it was more fun. It was just better. And I personally and selfishly, I could be home with my kids and my family, and then make moves like I did to Austin, because I'm not locked down to a location, and the company can move whenever we want it to. So those are some other pieces that were really important.
So let's talk about the company. Tell everybody exactly what you do. I think lots of times when we think about, customer support and things like that, we think call center and, just cube farms and things like that. But you're really focused on this whole idea of customer experience. So why don't you explain a little bit about the company, what the philosophy was in starting it, and what it is that you do today that makes you stand out from some of your competitors?
So for us, and there's, when you say call center work, it's a very broad statement, right? And of course, when I got into it, and the first guy told me, like, hey, you want to come work at the call center? I was expecting to walk in and be like a big room full of chain smoking 90-year-old women, like, just, hello, this is Doris, and it wasn't what it was. It was far younger of a crowd and very eclectic crowd. But what we do. There's a couple things that are differentiators for us, right? Like, we're a conduit to nearshore and offshore if people want it, if they want their support off and nearshore. So we have the ability to place stuff there. Our primary function is to position ourselves as a North American, primarily U.S. support model, which means all our people are in the United States. We're in 38 states, right? Which the point of that being is we want to deliver very high quality customer interactions for brands, leveraging U.S. talent and gaining it in business models that and client acquisition models that are bringing jobs back onshore versus offshore. And our pricing model allows for that because we're priced somewhere between nearshore and onshore when you look at the competitive market. So it does that. Our big push is that the number one thing and the number one challenge in any industry right now is customer experience and customer demand. Whether you're looking at if you look at the SaaS industry in particular, right? The biggest challenge is typically not the technology. It's the servicing, it's the acquisition and the servicing of those clients once you've got them. And so because most companies don't understand that maybe as well as they do what they're actually doing. It's an opportunity to outsource all or part of that departmental work. And so as an example, and I always use like stuff to try to use examples people are familiar with, like Verizon Wireless, right? All of us have cell phones. So think of your cell phone company. When you contact your cell phone company because you need a new phone or you have a problem or you need to add a line of service for your daughter or your son or whatever it may be, when you reach someone on that interaction, it's typically someone in a company like mine. It may not be my company, but it's a company who's in the business we're in. So most brands outsource a percentage or all of that because it's such a monstrous task. It becomes more economical and safer from a scalability standpoint to be able to do that versus trying to house all that yourself. I know this is a long answer, but it's kind of hard to wrap the head around. But and in that, our goal is to try to help brands create the most amazing customer experience for their customers they can, because statistically that's proven to help retain customers and increase the lifetime value of a customer in every industry. It doesn't matter. So that's what we do.
So how does technology play into that customer experience?
Yeah. So it's ever evolving, right? Like anything else. So, we leverage everything from omni-channel, like an omni-channel PBX system, right? To say, hey, because customers today, 90% of customers out there expect, and this is a really high number, 90+% customers out there, no matter what business you're in, expect to be able to talk to a brand the way they want to. Not the way the brand thinks they should, but the way the customer thinks it should. So our job is to provision omni-channel support via an omni-channel being like phone, text, SMS, chat, email, whatever it is, in a way that is easy for the customer to reach the client. So there's all that technology there. There's obviously CRM technology that we're using, which is different per customer because we're typically sitting on their customer management platforms or ERPs or whatever it may be that they're using, right? And depending on what we're doing, order processing platforms, e-commerce platforms, whatever it may be. Pest control, you're looking at like Gorilla Desk and those guys. Like it's all. I mean, it's a lot. And then you pepper in all the cool new stuff like some of the AI and things like that, where we're using tools that may be AI driven IVRs or AI coaching tools and QA tools that are now out there that are freaking crazy, because you got a company like Balto that plugs in and it's coaching agents what to say real time because it's listening to the call. So no longer does your customer service person have to like go look something up and try to figure out an answer. You've got a real time artificial intelligent assistant there. So it's a lot of tech. Like and again, we keep looking at going like, what's next? How do we make it better? But and it's different for every industry, right? Like it kind of looks on the adaptation rate of your customer. But anyway, it's almost everything.
So I want to shift gears here and talk a little bit about Austin, because I love the fact that you just moved here 2 months ago. I love the fact that, the country was, a blank slate for you. You could have gone anywhere that you wanted. Now, granted, you did grow up in Texas. You grew up in Fort Worth, but
Yeah.
You and your family could have gone anywhere. You could have moved the headquarters of where the company is operating to anywhere and gotten yourself involved, in a community. And you're working really hard to get involved in the Austin community. I've seen you start to, participate with the Austin Technology Council. And I know that you're looking around at other ways to get connected into this Austin scene. So what was it about Austin that really made you say, that's where we're going?
I think it was Matthew McConaughey and the Austin Technology Council, if I had to put the top two things on there. No.
All right.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier, I grew up in Fort Worth, right? So the hill country has always been sexy to me, right? Like it's just a cool I mean, Texas is fantastic, but Austin's always just dripped cool. And so from a family standpoint, we had a list of stuff we wanted to do, and some of that just involved nature and being outside in the lakes and things like that, and some of it involved music and arts because my family's pretty diverse. My wife would not fit in Weatherford, Texas, as much as I, thought about something like that. Um, and so for us, Austin was like, listen, this is a great spot. Um, I have this thing about I even call it this when I'm working with people. That I call it the Lone Star Standard, right? And there's this thing called when you do business in Texas and you're a Texas business, it's different to me than anywhere else. And that may just be a personal thing. I don't know, growing up here, but um, I just love the way that I did some research on the Austin community. I love the way the Austin tech community in general has just gone crazy, for the last whatever 20 years or whatever it is. And so that was super attractive to me. And like I said, we were doing some business in Texas and some other areas, and it just was the cool spot to go to. And we felt like it's got a really great eclectic mixed group of people from all over that offered a lot of stuff. And we felt like we could bring something to the table, right? Like this is a great spot. I'm not looking to consume um, clients from that standpoint. I really just thought it was a great place to be, to learn and connect. And in that, I feel like we'll probably get some clients, but also just contribute to the community in a lot of different ways.
So it is interesting because last year, especially, there was a lot of articles written in the SF Gate and in TechCrunch and in some other things that basically said, oh, the shine is coming off Austin. Austin is losing its luster. And yet a week doesn't go by that I don't have a conversation with a company that has moved here, is going to move here, is considering moving here, or entrepreneurs who are starting something new, who have decided that Austin is the place, to plant that flag. So why do you think some of these other places take shots at Austin? On some surveys, we fell from like number one place in the country for whatever the survey was about to number 3. And then people are like, well, that's the end of Austin. It's like, what do you mean? We're still in the top 3.
Yeah, I mean, we always, there's lots of stuff you see come out like that, and you're like, oh, it's, this has gone down, and you're like, well, it was going like this, it came down to like this, right? Like that's not really, don't paint it out like it's going downhill. It's not going downhill. Coming out of I was in Tampa. I've been in Tampa the last 16 years. Like Tampa is a phenomenal market as well, and some people are like, you're crazy to leave here to go to there, and I was like, well, that's where we feel like we're supposed to be. I think some of the, again, it's people take shots at stuff they feel threatened by, or they're intimidated by, or they're jealous of, and things like that, right? I always kind of look at that way, whether it's personal or professional. People or businesses that are very confident compete with themselves, right? And so I think as an Austin community, and I think Tampa, like I mentioned Tampa, because I still love that community as well. When you know who you are and you know what you're about, your only competition is yourself. How do we improve on that? And I think that's another thing I like about Austin is it's got it's got enough here where it doesn't have to participate in a game like that. So I don't buy into a lot of that stuff.
So what do you think Austin's doing right, and where do you think Austin can improve as we look to the future?
Yeah, so I haven't been here that long, but I think doing right. I mean, again, being in the Texas and Florida markets, like I have been now, we've seen a lot of people move to both, right? So I think from a tax purposing, and like the state does a really great job. I think Austin does a really great job of making it attractive for companies to move here in a lot of different ways. I think those are like the big things. And I think communities like the Austin Tech Council, I'm not saying that because you're on here, but I think having great communities for people to join and be a part of that are actually working towards something. I think that's attractive to businesses too, because there's a lot out there that they're there, but it's really just a glorified breakfast every blue moon and a something to stick on your website, right? That you're a member of it. There's really no contribution or collaboration going on, right? So I think Austin's known for that quite a bit. It's a very collaborative community. And so those are the big ones there. I think, from a city standpoint, I don't know that I've been here long enough. Like there's some inner city challenges that I look at when you look at homelessness, that I feel like is something that, and that's just a passion of mine. Like I look around and see, the environment and of that, and my heart goes out. And I think I don't think that's an isolated problem to Austin. Like that's everywhere too. But I look around here and say like, that's an area of opportunity for businesses to try to work together to figure out, that would make the place better, right? And help a lot of people. So those are probably my two ends of the stick.
So I ask everyone who comes on the show, because my personal belief is that more community, collaboration, and conversations can solve all problems, whatever it is. If we get together, if we have that sense of community, if we're working together, and if we're talking about the problems, I think we can fix it. And every now and then, I've said it on the show before, just imagine for a second that in Washington, D.C., in the Capitol, if every congressperson and every senator who walked into the rotunda all day that they were there had to operate by those three words: community, collaboration, and conversation, and they couldn't do anything if it didn't fit those three words, I think we'd have a better government. And I think we'd have a better world. And so when I say those words, they all work together. They're all part of the same ecosystem. But when I say community, collaboration, and conversation, which one resonates with you the most and why?
Yeah. So, I mean, my first thought is like, it's really hard to separate those things. I think they all are so interwoven that to separate them is really difficult. If I just go off the feeling of the word, it would probably be collaboration. And that's because I go back to the reason it resonates with me is, I personally love getting to be involved in, and sometimes just even close enough to be a really great seated spectator, in things that are fun and cool and amazing, and when I say that, I don't mean it has to be a Super Bowl. Like I personally get jazzed watching someone succeed at their business or hearing success stories about their business, or their family or their life, right? Like I just think there's nothing cooler than seeing an entrepreneur have success at whatever level that is, because we've all been there. We know how hard it is. So, but I think collaborating, because it's just so powerful when you can get it right, it creates a big energy.
So Eric, before I let you go, any last words of advice for the Austin tech entrepreneur community that might be listening? Anything that you think you wish everybody in entrepreneurship knew?
Yes. Golly, let me back up. There's a lot, but I'll just go back to my main theme, which is customer experience. And that is, really take time to listen to your customer, understand what they want. You'll save yourself a lot of pain and heartache, trouble, if you can do that.
Nice. Well, Eric Sims, thank you so much for joining us here on Austin Tech Connect. And thank you for diving in and getting involved with our community.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Like I said, I'm excited to be here.
Nice. Well, we appreciate that. So thank you to everybody who tuned in and listened. You know what? We do Austin Tech Connect every week, and we try to bring you a wide variety of our local entrepreneurs, business leaders, and civic leaders who are making a difference here in our community. So please make sure that you listen to the show every week. Make sure that you tell everyone in your company to check out Austin Tech Connect. And also, is your company a member of the Austin Technology Council? We would welcome your involvement right now, because we need to have smart, intelligent, thoughtful people, the real visionaries of Austin, helping us as we look to the future. We would like you to add your voice to the Austin Technology Council. So please make sure your company's a member.
Thanks for listening to the Austin Tech Connect podcast. Make sure your company is a member of the Austin Technology Council and add your voice to the future of our tech ecosystem in Central Texas.